Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Srinivadi Pasjati Deshitarne. First, a disclaimer. These are not all new stories. I'm sure Moksha Lakshmi has heard them before, so feel free.
All these stories are in the book. The book will be here tomorrow, about 4 or 5 o'clock from the guest house. So if you want to see more stories, please come.
Everything Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhu produces is a masterpiece. So these will be kind of short. These are direct experiences I had with Srila Prabhupada. I had the experience of how Srila Prabhupada liked movement within the Hare Krishna movement within the movement. Let me explain that. I was on a traveling Sankirtan bus, one of the first buses that went up and down the East Coast in the United States. It was not the Radha Damodar, one of those buses, but it was Rupanuga Swami's bus. And I was actually second initiated on that bus in 1973. We actually had a fire yajna inside the bus, and they put we put aluminum foil on the inside of the roof so the bus wouldn't catch on fire. But we had a fire yajna, and I was initiated, and also the deities were installed, Gaur-Nitai. So we took that bus to New Vrindavan for Janmashtami when Srila Prabhupada was there in 1973. And we stopped the bus in Bahulaban, or on the way to Bahulaban. There was a lot of mud in those days in New Vrindavan. And we actually heard Srila Prabhupada was in his house, so we stopped the bus, and Prabhupada came out, and he wanted to come on board the bus. He seemed excited to be on a moving temple, and as he came on board as the pujari, I gave Srila Prabhupada Charanamrita, and he just went very elegantly, just acknowledged, and he saw the deities. And then we had a door over the rear wheel base, so he wanted to go and see the entire bus. So he went through that door, and he gave a nod when he saw the shower. And then the real excitement happened when he went into the kitchen, which was all the way in the back of the bus. So he walked there, and we used to cook on the bus as it was going 70 miles an hour down the highway. And we made things called chapuris. It was a combination of a chapati and a puri. And, you know, as the ghee was going like that, we'd be cooking. But we had to think of a way. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. We had to think of a way what to do with the glass spice jars. Because naturally, if you just take a spice jar and put it on the wooden shelf, it would come crashing down as we're driving. So what we came up with this idea to take the lid and screw it into the bottom of the shelf so that you could just screw up the glass jar and screw out the jar. So it would remain solidly in place. And it just seemed like a logical thing to do. We didn't think so much about it. Prabhupada looked all over the kitchen, and then he saw the glass jars there, and he started to screw them out and screw them in again several times, and he was smiling. And then he looked at us and he said, "American ingenuity." And it was so charming that he looked at that detail, which you would never imagine. He didn't really, I mean, he showed a sweet mood when he saw the Gaur Thai, but he got excited that we had the God-given intelligence to think of ways while we were moving to, in other words, we wouldn't even wait until the bus was parked. We would go from one program to another at universities, distributing Back to Godhead magazines. So we were cooking on the way, and he just really appreciated that so much that that's what I meant by movement within the movement. It really excited him. And it was just so wonderful to see that. So that's one experience. And the other I know people have heard about, but I'm going to try to pull some more meaning out of it. I got a, feel free to leave, Moshe Lakshmi. I got a degree in biology from University of Buffalo, where a lot of devotees came out of that university. It's kind of famous for producing devotees in our movement. So I got a degree in biology, and I was thinking I want to be a doctor. I wanted to utilize it. So I wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and I wrote about, not about being a Western doctor, but about being an Ayurvedic doctor, because I thought that would be more acceptable. So I asked in the letter if I could study under his Kaviraj in Calcutta. I was still in the States, and I never got an answer to that letter. I think Prabhupada was moving around. So when I first went to India in the around February of 1974, arrived in New Delhi, and Srila Prabhupada was on the roof getting massaged by Shruti Kirti. And I walked up, I just brazenly, stupidly, I guess, walked right up as Srila Prabhupada's getting massaged, and I said, "Srila Prabhupada, I wrote you a letter about studying under your Kaviraj," and he just went, "Not now." And I felt, like jumping off the roof or something that. But I did have a chance to see him later, and that was almost 6 months later in Calcutta, when I was allowed to go into the room, Prabhupada's room at the end of the hall there, for those who know that temple. And when I walked in the room, Satsvarup Maharaj said, "Go ahead." So Prabhupada was sitting in one of his favorite comfortable poses, which was, he was like that. And he was sitting on the duddy, and his short, low table was in front of him. And I walk in, and he's just, conversing, but there was no one in the room. And I thought, great, I have just interrupted a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or Narada Muni, because it looked like he was having an animate discussion. And he looked over and, yes. And I had given Dandavats. And I again said, but Srila Prabhupada, I had written you about being an Ayurvedic doctor. And again, he actually physically moved backwards. And I knew this wasn't going to go well, but he saw that I just couldn't let it go. So first of all, he said, Ayurveda. He said, Western medicine is very advanced. So that, if you can imagine, I really wanted to be a Western doctor, but I had thought if I say Ayurveda, then he would say yes. But then he said Western medicine, but I couldn't really say, but I really meant Western Dr. Prabhupada. So I got very confused, which Srila Prabhupada is so expert at literally pulling the foundation out from your argument. So there's really nothing to say. And then he just said, he very kindly said, whatever medicine that works, just use it. In other words, don't become a doctor, just whatever medicine that works, just use it. And then I think he had a bound copy, specially bound copy of the Krishna book, and he lifted it, and he said, just work with my books and be a spiritual doctor, which I found so profound. And in other words, that's what everyone sitting here is, a spiritual doctor. And my realization, that desire to just actually be a Western doctor just literally disappeared at that moment. Not that there's anything wrong with being a doctor if you're a doctor, but Prabhupada was on an emergency mission, and he didn't want us to be diverted. But what I experienced over the next couple of years and the next 40 years was that when Srila Prabhupada gives a direction, he doesn't just, it's not just ending in the vibration that he made of the direction, the words. It's just that what I experienced was that doors opened up that I could just walk through, like bridges appeared that I could walk over, and I was almost immediately after our discussion, I was invited to be on the BBT library party, where I went to 14 countries around in the Far East. And and then invited eventually to be a BBT director of these pioneering languages that was also due to the third meeting I had with Prabhupada here in his room in November 9th, 1976. Or I won't go through all of that, but ultimately he said that because we were able to get his books in a Muslim library up in Kashmir. And when he heard the word Muslim, a change came over him. And he made at that meeting a very famous statement, which is now legendary in the movement, that anyone who preaches in the Muslim world, I take the dust from their feet and put it on my head. So for each one of us, the trajectory of our devotional service all emanates from Srila Prabhupada's mercy and Krishna's mercy. But Srila Prabhupada's mercy is what we all are energized by and spiritually guided by. And so I almost feel he was seeing decades ahead, just looking through me that day in his room in Calcutta. And now I was able to personally get, by Prabhupada's grace, his Gita translated into Arabic. And it's like going all over the world to Arabs who are tourists and students who come to the Western world. And then they take them back home. So Prabhupada's turning the Arabs into book distributors. They take them back home to the Middle East. But this is just all Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and each one of us has a specific propensity, desire, wish, and if we just listen in our heart to what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do, he will make that reality. So I just wanted to share that. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There's a few other things I could say, but
You mentioned which book, how many of these titles you've done already?
well, I am saying Arabic, but I have 14 languages that I'm working with. But I have the Arabic Gita, the Perfection of Yoga, Beyond Birth and Death, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers in Arabic, and the same books in other major Far Eastern languages. But we were able to publish so far 320,000 Arabic books, and they have, they're on the way to all being distributed. So anything can happen. We saw what happened in Russia. So Prabhupada's books are, the knowledge within changes lives, that there's no limit to the power in one of Prabhupada's books. So they're getting back, they're taking them home with them, and the experience they have with the devotees changes their heart. You can imagine if you're called I'm not going to say the word here, but if you're called something that the Arab people are called, that little group of hard to imagine, negative force people that are in the Middle East, which is the tiniest little percentage of people that generally they're faithful people. In fact, they're very fascinated by ancient knowledge from India. That's why so many, Arabic is now my #1 fastest selling language. Believe it or not, you would think it would be the last. That's just because they're reaching out more than anyone else, because, you know, they're being identified with horrible people when they're just people of faith, 99.8%, 9%. So it's, you know, it's kind of wonderful that all this is happening really from the Genesis, which started in Prabhupada's room. Yeah.
What's the future? How many more languages?
Well, I'm a little biased toward Arabic because of what happened in Prabhupada's room. And I need Prabhupada's, it's very selfish also, I need Prabhupada's mercy. When Prabhupada says he'll take the dust from anyone that does that and puts it on his head, that's a horrific image. But what he's really saying is that he will give unlimited dust from his lotus feet on anyone that does this. And I'm not speaking really about myself, I'm speaking about the book distributors around the world. Because these books are being distributed all over Europe, all over the UK, France, where there's 6 million Arabic speakers, Australia, New Zealand. So to the tourists and the students who temporarily visit by the millions to the Western world, that's where the books are distributed. And then they all take them back to share with their friends and family back to the Middle East. So the other languages is, you know, I have Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Turkish, Farsi. Farsi is the next language that we'd like to produce the Bhagavad-Gita in. But we need, yeah, we have the mercy, but we need Lakshmi also. Because it's not inexpensive to publish the Bhagavad-Gita in these languages. And sometimes the characters are naturally a little bit larger. And so a 900-page English Gita can be an 1100-page Arabic Gita, just to read it properly. But it's very, you know, it's very exciting work. It's really pioneering work. It's like the last frontier, really. And when you think that Gaur Nitai preached to Muslims also, that they thought it was extremely important, the Chand Kazi and so on, you know. So anyone who does this, they get the mercy of the whole Parampara, plus Srila Prabhupada's and Gaur Nitai's. I tell everyone and it's very easy to do, because like I said, they're reaching out for the books. Any university, any major tourist place has tons of Arabic speakers. And if you just do one book, you're getting that mercy. Why would we not do that? It's very easy to do. I've talked a lot. Any comments from anyone?
What do you need besides
Bhaktisiddhanta.
need more people?
Yeah. I mean, most divisions, BBT divisions, there's 9 of them. You know, North America, South America, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, like there's 9, BBT India. Generally, they have a whole staff, like 7 or 8 people at least, right in the BBT designers, and I'm all 7. But I get help, you know, I get help from different people and designers, and my office is in the office of the BBT North America in Los Angeles. So I get, Krishna's very kind, giving a lot of help. But if there's any wealthy philanthropists out there who would like to get that mercy, see me after the talk. So who's next? There's 45 minutes. Oh, really? Just a humorous little story. Another movement within the movement experience was the Nitai Padakamalam boat in Mayapur in 1975. Srila Prabhupada also came on that boat, on that vehicle. And he kind of blessed that boat, and just like I was the pujari on the bus, I was the pujari on the vessel, on the boat in Mayapur. We went up and down the Ganges from Mayapur all the way down to the Sundarbans, which is Bengal tiger country, south of Calcutta. So we'd go up and down, and the villagers would give us rice and mangoes to offer the deities. Beautiful Nim Gaurnitai deities. So we would generally leave right after Gaur Purnima in Mayapur. This was 1975. And that is also, for anyone who's lived in Mayapur, that's hurricane season. So sometimes when you're out on this, this boat, which was called a jolly boat, it was kind of a hay boat, but it had a little engine and sails, and we would park it at night in the middle of the Ganges so there's no mosquitoes. And we just lived on the boat. So sometimes the Ganges gets so wide you do not see the shores. So once when we were going down the Ganges, when we couldn't see the shores, in the distance we saw a black band of clouds, which you don't want to see when you're on a boat in the middle of the Ganges, because it means the hurricane's coming. So that black band very quickly came over us. I was, at the time, this was in the morning, and I was dressing Gaur Nitai, and suddenly it got very dark. And what happens is that when the hurricane comes, the winds just stop completely, and the temperature drops about 15 degrees in a few seconds. So then I went, oh no. And so what happened is that the waves started coming, and the boat almost started surfing on the waves. And the problem was we couldn't get the sail down, at which you have to get the sail down, or else the sail can tip the whole boat over. But it was stuck. There was a very tight knot. And anyway, the boat's starting to really rock, and the water's just below the portholes now. The boat's tilting, and I'm still trying to dress the deities. And I look around, and I turned around to get some necklace or something, and I looked forward, and Nityananda was gone. And you know, I was just, what? And I looked out the curtain, and Nityananda had flown out and landed on a brahmachari's lap in the temple room. So, I mean, and this is all happening while the boat's really going over, and then a Maji, which is a Bengali for a boatman, like a Muslim boatman, we had to tack us back and forth. He had this great idea. You know the sabji knives that you cut sabji on? So he broke it off the wood holder, put it in his teeth, climbed up the mast, and hit the rope real hard, and then it gave way, so that the sail went loose, and then the sail just becomes, you know, completely loose, and then the boat went whoop, just upright again, and so we were just going up and down on the waves, not controlled by the sails. So, so we got Nityananda Prabhu back on the altar, and later when we came back to Mayapur, Prabhupada was in Mayapur. So I think Bhavananda was the captain at that time. Anyway, he went to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, I think there may have been an aparad made. Yes. Well, there was a storm out at sea and on the river, and the boat was rocking so hard that one of the deities actually flew off the altar and landed on a brahmachari. It might have actually touched the temple floor. And Prabhupada was very grave. Oh, who was the deity? And Bhavananda says, Nityananda Prabhu. And Prabhupada said, oh, Nityananda, he is a very controversial character. So it's not a problem. So he said, you know, in other words, Nityananda wanted to fly out, he can do whatever he likes. So, yeah. So that was, everything was a great adventure back then in Mayapur. I mean, just surviving was an adventure. But, you know, that was before generators, but, you know, it was just, but it was just, everyone was kind of happy in that austerity. And Prabhupada was there with us. So. Thank you for your time. It's a great honor to be here. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.